Ladies and gentlemen, this is the crossover that you are never gonna expect for, but here is Ace Ventura Pet Detective and The Mask versus Dr. Robotnik!
Ugh, whatever this creature is, I'm going to uncover the source of its power! With this power, no one can stop me! You think you can get away from me? I'm coming for you. Alright, time to plan my first attack on this silly little alien for good. Let's see here. Eeny, meeny, miny, mayhem! You're mine, hedgehog! Ha! Nonsense, three pants! Okay! I was not expecting that. But I was expecting not to expect something, so it doesn't count. Anyway, who are you? Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and you must be the son of the Monopoly guy. Thanks for the free parking. Me and him took care of it. We both did. Like a glove. I am super strong. I am super loud. And I am super enforceable. That's gonna hurt. They call me a superhero! I can fight crime, protect the innocent, work for world peace! But you may call me The Mask. Ooh, somebody stop me! And you are Mr. The name is Dr. Robotnik. A brilliant man with a 300 IQ with a well-groomed mustache that is superior than your half-witted brain of yours. Dr. Robotnik? Allow me to introduce you to my friend. Nice to meet you, Dr. Robotnik. I am Ace Ventura's personal assistant, and my stinky senses are tingling that you smell like rotten eggs. Gee, I thought you would have a sense of humor. After all, this guy's incorrigible. And now, the time for talking is over. It's time to push buttons. Holy Testicle Tuesday! Uh-oh. Where's the camcorder when you need one? If you don't give me an explanation why you break out to my hideout without permission, I'm gonna give you 5 seconds to tell me why. I'm gonna need a clean pair of shorts. Any bright ideas, fancy pants? Okay. Let's see. Sorry, wrong pocket. No. Alright, I confess. I did you hear, and I'm glad I tell ya. What are you gonna do to me, Sarge? What are you gonna do? Please don't spare my life. Take his life instead. Please don't kill me. I'll never tell anyone. Kill him. He's the one you want. What? Moi? You should kill him for this lazy heritage. Hey! You mess with the do! Nobody messes with the do! Wow, what a crybaby! Ha ha ha! Shut it, Baldy! Filthy animal! Green jeans! Ha! Try me, Tarzan, king of the monkey doo-doo! Ah! Silence! Both of you! Any last words? Gee, let me think. You are tracking down a blue anamorphic hedgehog who just came from another dimension, and he's coming here just to take a runaway from his home, and you are trying to get every single fur essential that's part of his body. And why would you throw your life away for this silly little alien? Because we're here to save our animal friends. Confidence. A fool's substitute for intelligence. Like a glove. You're about to die. Look at that! It's exactly 2 seconds before I honk your nose and pull your underwear over your head. Rub that in my orphan face! Ha! I'm just killing time. Oh no, there's like nuts! Time for an overhaul! Alrighty then! Say uncle! Say uncle! Shall we end this? Uh-oh, you need an oil change? Don't worry, I'll fix that for you, buddy! I beg you. Come on! Put him on! Put him on! Yes! Yes! Oh, yeah! Can you feel funny? Huh? The who? The her? Ooh! That's gotta hurt. Give me a big, fat break! You are good, kid. Real good. But as long as I'm around, you'll always be second best, see? Thank you for your cooperation. Our work here is done. Alrighty then. Take care now. Bye-bye then. Ooh, somebody stop us! Ha ha ha! Alrighty then, my roll chums. It is I, Daniel, but you may call me the Pop Culture Dude. For my last video, I technically just made a Jim Carrey roleplay birthday tribute, which is basically just in honor, of course, the birthday and the legacy of all the roles that Jim Carrey's been really well known for. And of course, I'm just going to repeat this again if some of you don't know this. He's my favorite movie actor of all time, like ever since when I was young. And he's the actor that got me into acting into the first place. And eventually, I find my own talent that I just want to be an entertaining actor like him, so I kind of take a little bit inspiration from him, especially with my style, sense of humor, especially when he does a lot of physical work and the elaborate type of faces. So technically, I of course really admire Jim Carrey, that I can relate to him, both his personal life but also his dream career as well. But the one thing, of course, what's so interesting about, of course, what was his breakthrough as a really talented, like, he's called, like, movie star material, like, he's a really well-known actor. It started off in 1994. I mean, sure, little old James Eugene Carrey was doing a lot of late-night comedy skits after when he dropped out of high school, became a high school janitor, and when his parents were struggling with money, but just to help out with both of his parents, just to make them laugh and make them feel entertained during dark times, he decided to do a little bit of stand-up in some late-night shows. He started to be in this TV show In Living Color, which kind of boosted up his career, until then later on, we get to 1994, aka the holy trinity of 3 Jim Carrey movies that were big hits in his biggest career, and to comedy movies in general. From Ace Ventura Pet Detective being the first one on February 4th, 1994, and ironically, we're in February, it's football season. Hopefully, Snowflake the Miami Dolphin doesn't get kidnapped by Ihorn or Ray Finkel. So, anyway, that was his first breakout role. That's one of the things that he became very iconic for. And then second, which is my favorite Jim Carrey movie, The Mask, which made me got into acting but fully adore myself as a Jim Carrey fan through that movie. It came out like
in the summer of 1994. It was a huge box office success that it made over $350 million. And then the last movie that completes the holy trinity of Jim Carrey's 1994 films of the trio is Dumb and Dumber, which is a really fun comedy that features both him and Jet Daniels playing Lloyd and Harry, two idiots, because obviously they're both dumb and dumber, and then basically have to go. It's more like a road trip buddy type of movie. And technically, after the success of both of those films, well, technically 3 because there's 3 in total, Jim was actually offered just to do a sequel of his first iconic character, Ace Ventura Pet Detective. Since that's where he becomes a world-known global star, he was filming back-to-back from, in the year 1995, from Batman Forever, when he took the role as the Riddler, and also he planned to do an Ace Ventura sequel, When Nature Calls. And I love both the first film and the second Ace Ventura film equally together, that I just love them so much. And Ace Ventura, he has some really great, amazing moments, all the iconic catchphrases. Even as a kid, I even touched one of the movie props at Disney Springs one time, and it was just like pure, like something like bright through my eyes. I'm like, holy crap, I'm touching a prop from a Jim Carrey movie. Is this real? I wasn't kissing the zebra G, but that was my attitude. But technically, even though Ace Ventura 2, When Nature Calls was a really successful sequel, but you may not would have heard what happened behind the scenes. Jim did have a blast, but he kind of felt a little bit burned out while in production in Ace Ventura 2 and after Batman Forever. And after Ace Ventura 2, he basically had kind of like a struggle of filming back-to-back the schedule, but also finding, of course, new materials of a role that he's done before. And after Ace Ventura 2, he decided to not do sequels because there was in talks for a mass sequel. And if I was alive by that time, I would be like, give me a sequel, because no spoilers if you have not seen The Mask. But from the ending right here, it had a nice, satisfying ending to the movie. But there's the part of the ending where I scream, sequel, sequel, sequel! So technically, I feel like The Mask is a movie that's so good that I feel like it definitely deserves a sequel ahead. But sadly, it never happened. It was like back in the summer of 1995 where they make an animated spin-off, which is basically a Italian cartoon. That's why they actually made like 3 animated Jim Carrey cartoons from The Mask, Ace Ventura, and Dumb and Dumber. Jim did not voice any of these characters. They have other talented voice actors just to go for these roles. But there's this one crossover that The Mask and Ace Ventura themselves made a crossover in animated form. Sure, it's not like the same thing as live action, but it's at least acceptable, just to make, of course, 2 Jim Carrey characters are really well known. And they are my top 2 favorite Jim Carrey characters. And they eventually just made a crossover. And that's why the skit that I did earlier with Ace Ventura and The Mask was basically like a homage to that, facing Dr. Robotnik. So after Ace Ventura 2, he decided like he doesn't want to plan sequels just because he doesn't want to do it for the sake of money, since he got paid over $15 million to reprise his role as Ace Ventura again. But technically, he has some conflict with the schedule of going movie after movie after movie, since every studio wants to call him up, since Jim was getting very popular. And since he did not have time to do that, he decided like step away and focus on new roles, new projects, and that's why The Mask 2 was canceled, because Jim Carrey refused, because he was offered $10 million to make the sequel, and he just refused because he doesn't want to repeat the role again, even though he loves the character Stanley Ipkiss, not just because he can relate to the character that he's a fan of cartoons. Stanley Ipkiss reminds him a lot of his father, Percy Carey, and the yellow suit is a homage from what his mother, Kathleen Carey, gave to him in his first stand-up show. I'm like, why would he say no to that? But I get it, I understand. But as a kid, like, I wanted a Mask 2 so badly that we just got some really crappy films that does not involve Jim Carrey, and the studios decided to cash in to make another installment, and they were complete garbage. Son of the Mask, Ace Ventura Pet Detective Jr., and Dumb and Dumberer, When Harry Met Lloyd's. Those films were absolute garbage. Not just because Jim Carrey was not involved in those movies, just because the stories were horrible, the characters were awful, the writing was awful. They were just bad movies in general, with or without Jim Carrey in those movies. So technically, I, of course, heard like a tons of rumors that he is in talks to do sequels. And after 20 years, when he broke his promise of not doing sequels, that's when Dumb and Dumber 2 came out 20 years later, after the first one, 2014. And if you're wondering, well, wait, if he doesn't like sequels, why did he join to do Dumb and Dumber 2? Well, the thing is, the reason why that he decided to come, of course, in the sequel of Dumb and Dumber, just because he actually was interested in the story and he's passionate about, like, you know what, maybe I could be interested to play Lloyd again. I love working with my buddy Jeff, and to me it'll be great just to work on this story that I actually had a fun, good time. But technically the reviews weren't really that good, and for my personal opinion, you can hate all Dumb and Dumber 2 if you want, but I don't think it's a bad movie. Sure, I definitely agree the first movie is way a lot better because the story make a lot more sense, it's a little more developed, and it had a lot of likable supporting characters besides the main characters. But it did kind of rehash the first film, but it was at least acceptable as a Dumb and Dumber sequel than that lame prequel that happened back like almost nearly a decade ago. So technically, that was like the last sequel that he ever done. So the only sequels he did is Ace Ventura 2, When Nature Calls, and Dumb and Dumber 2. And that's why I'm just hoping, I'm hoping a mass sequel happens. But sadly, Cameron Diaz, who was the main female lead, Tina Carwile, which, not gonna lie, Stanley had a crush on. I had a crush on her when I was a kid. Yeah, she's the same woman who voiced Fiona from the Shrek movies. And technically, she retired from acting the same year when Jim Carrey did Dumb and Dumber 2, and that's why I'm like, oh boy, a mass sequel is not that possible either too. But for right now, at a time like this, I'm like, I don't say that we didn't need an Ace Ventura 3 right away back in the 90s, but like 10, 15 years later, kind of like with Dumb and Dumber 2, I felt like, Jim, this is the perfect time just to return to your characters. Since 2020, I believe, is going to be the great comeback for Jim Carrey's career from both his TV show Kidding Season 2, which is coming on Sunday, February 9th, and the Sonic movie, which is my most anticipated movie of 2020. Love Sonic the Hedgehog, love Jim Carrey, that movie is made for me. And also he's going to do on a tour of his new novel called Miss Moores and Misfortune. I apologize if I get the title wrong. But he's doing a world tour, and guess what? I live in Florida, and there's a possibility that he may come here in Miami in May 9th, so I might be there. I probably might meet my childhood hero if I can. So, besides from that, I think 2020 might be the best decade to be like Jim Carrey's like his big comeback to his career. Not just because of that, because he's actually in possibilities from studios and even from himself that he's interested once again just to reprise his iconic characters and maybe even reprise his modern roles like Robotnik, for instance. And here's the thing, let me just clarify. Jim Carrey is not crazy to be rooted to do sequels, but as long as he's passionate with the story or the direction of his character is going, how much he loves enjoying playing the character and choosing the right filmmaker and the right writers, that's how he feels ready to return to an iconic character. So back in December of 2019, I got a lot of rumors and it made me gone completely nuts. I just went wild all over the room by saying rumors of Ace Ventura 3 and The Mask 2 might be happening from what I'm reading from the sources. Like, when I first heard, of course, The Mask 2, I'm like, you're not joking, right? You're not telling me that female mask-led reboot is a hoax, right? Because I'd rather have a proper sequel than a straight-up reboot. That was the problem that I have with Ghostbusters 2016. And now they're apologizing with us with Ghostbusters 3 Afterlife. Hopefully The Mask doesn't get the same treatment. So, back then in November, where they said The Mask 2 might be happening, according to some sources, that it says from right here that this pop has big rough rumors of have the follow-up to Jim Carrey's biggest movies, The Mask, and has heard that a sequel might be in the works to bring back Jim Carrey, Stanley Ipkiss back on the big screen. The film was based on a Dark Horse comic property, and we did hear a little bit of a female reboot, which I don't want to happen, which might be assuming that we aren't bringing the Stanley Ipkiss back, but more sequel of The Mask down below. Like, it's very interested that Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema, the studio that makes the Mask sequel, is actually interested to bring Jim Carrey back. And I think the Sonic movie is the reason why that most studios are like, maybe Jim has the opportunity to come back to his older roles. And that's why, in my mind, I'm like, to me, that's possibly like one of the solutions that could be done. And then it's the exact same thing about Ace Ventura 3. And to me, I actually want to see an Ace Ventura 3, and I'm going to tell you a couple of ideas for what I want to see in an Ace Ventura 3. But after that, when I heard The Mask 2 and Ace Ventura 3 rumors, I'm like, this is not real. They're trying to mess with my mind. If it's happening, then I'll be so happy, and I will cosplay as these characters in the theater, which I would do as Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic movie if I'm going to go see it in the next 2 weeks. But back then, when I heard about Ace Ventura 3 possibly coming back into the works at Morgan Creek, and yes, I do follow them on Twitter, and basically Warner Brothers and Morgan Creek is happily having the possibility of making another sequel of Jim Carrey as long as he's interested on reprising the role of the characters a good time. And he's always been portraying the same roles more than once, but Carrey is said to be at least very interested. So there's no word on Jim Carrey by saying like he is definitely in to be in Ace Ventura 3, but there's possible rumors. But Morgan Creek just made this tweet by saying like they just keep on retweeting that Ace Ventura 3 is definitely a possibility. And the one thing is that Ace Ventura 3 is definitely good to go. They said they already got their story. They already got their script. They're just waiting for Jim Carrey's approval. And I'm so glad the revival of the Ace Ventura films is not for the sake of money. Can't make the scene if you don't have the green. It's for the sake of this headline right here. If Jim Carrey's in, we're in. We'll take him in any chance to get... Let me just rephrase that. Is that interactive replay? If Jim Carrey's in, we're in. And we'll take him in any way we can get him. This is a chance to honor the nostalgia of the original films, but also introduce a whole new audience to the franchise. So yeah, it's a good thing to acknowledge the nostalgia of both the first film and the second, but also with this new film, introduce Ace Ventura to a whole younger audience. If you have like kids out there who don't really know Jim Carrey that much, but their parents are a huge fan, that will be their nice opportunity. And like I said, Jim has not mentioned anything about, yes, I'm definitely returning my role as Ace Ventura, even though he's the type of guy that he's not like, I'm not in the mood right now. But there's a possibility. And before I move on to the Mask sequel, I'm going to talk about my couple ideas from one of the sources did say about Ace Ventura 3. Now I'm hearing like a couple of rumors that there's a possible subplot or a plot line that that Ace Ventura is going to save a rare line from this upcoming project. Carrey isn't locked yet. But there's a brief overview of a plot at the moment where Ace is being called out of retirement to save a rare lion. And to me, the word that highlights is retirement. And to me, that would be a great concept. Kind of like, spoiler alert for Dumb and Dumber 2, when Lloyd Christmas was faking his disease for 20 years, that explains his absence, why he's not hanging out with his best friend Harry. And after so many years, ever since Ace Ventura 2 came out in November 1995, yes, the same time when Toy Story came out, but technically, it will make a lot of sense, like, why is there not that much pet detective cases or any, of course, animal in danger, like, crimes happening? Maybe it's because Ace is retired. And to me, since we're struggling with Australian fires and environmental problems, this will be the opportunity for Ace to put on his do-back with the sunglasses shade and eventually go back on solving pet detective cases again to save his pure, beloved animal friends. And to me, that's what I want to see in Ace Ventura 3. Anyway, that was all for the Ace Ventura news. Now we're going to move on to the Mask sequel, which I definitely want so badly. So, it's been very recently in the Sonic movie interviews, and yes, I've been following Jim Carrey from every interview, and every interview he's in. I can't speak today. I'm going to need some water. Hold on for a 5-minute break. This is what happens when I'm being unprofessionally with my grammar. So, anyway, the one thing that got me so excited when I heard the news, I'm going to look up Jim Carrey Mask 2. And after that, when I heard a lot of articles and a lot of headlines, I just went, oh! Like, I literally overreacted just like that, just because I'm like, oh my gosh, this could be real. This could be real if this is true. He says the Mask 2 is a possibility. He's open to do a Mask 2 under one condition. And what is that one condition, you may ask? It was this one interview at comicbookcast.com. This is what he has to say. He says, I don't think in terms of sequels or stuff like that. I mean, for this one, Sonic the Hedgehog, it feels kind of right because we have not evolved the character Dr. Eggman fully yet. The Mask, I think myself, it would depend on a filmmaker. It depends on a filmmaker, really. I don't want to do it just to do it, but if there was some crazy visionary filmmaker, sure. So, all that alone just pretty much states that he's not really there for sequels, but as long as they find a good director that has an amazing vision for a sequel, he will definitely be in. But the one thing is, I'm like, wait, what about the original director, Chuck Russell? He did such an amazing job with the first film. First off, I think the movie's way better than the comics. If you dare read the comic books, it's completely different from the movie, and it's so violent, so gory that it haunted me when I was a child. So technically, I love the movie from Chuck Russell's creativity that, of course, one of the things I just love about the movie, it has action, it has drama, it has cartoonish logics, it has, of course, comedy, some really, of course, nostalgic music for me. It has a really nice song. So the movie's kind of like half a musical. It's a crime thriller. It has a nice romantic story. It's just that it's everything that I love in a movie. Even the visual effects and the editing, the set designs, the costume designs. It's just too good, and that's why The Mask is my favorite Jim Carrey movie of all time. And to me, it definitely deserves a sequel just because it's not just Jim Carrey's performance, it's the movie itself that was amazing. And I want that to be happen for this potential sequel. Like, even when I was a kid, and I can make a whole separate video if I wanted, but I already made my separate, of course, idea by saying I made my own Mask sequel script, and I may have, like, lost some of the notes, but when I went into my basement, I found the script I've been writing ever since when I was a little kid of writing the Mask 2 fan script. And I can make a whole separate video for what are my ideas for a Mask sequel, but back then, if a Mask 2 never happens or an Ace Ventura 3, I probably might make a fan film. It'll be so expensive. Some other YouTubers do that by making their own Mask fan films on YouTube. It'll be pretty expensive, but if it never happens, I'll make it myself and I'll do my best. But if The Mask 2 does exist with Jim Carrey, then I'll just cancel that idea. But other than that, like, I'll definitely be on board. And if they can't bring Chuck Russell back, please bring a great director. Don't make the movie R-rated because, no offense, I know you want to be more like the comics, but that will completely just ruin my childhood and lost the magic of the first film. Hopefully you can bring Cameron Diaz back. But still, if you gave us a true, proper Mask sequel with Jim Carrey, then it will be a smoking sequel to watch. So I'll definitely be on board if a Mask sequel does happen, and it's up to the right filmmaker with The Mask 2. And the one thing that we have to go back to where Jim Carrey says, even though I'm not, of course, in terms of doing sequels, but for Sonic the Hedgehog, he feels right for it. So you know what this means. Basically, he had so much fun making the Sonic movie as Dr. Robotnik, and to me, Dr. Robotnik is basically the biggest comeback of his career, and he probably might be one of my most obsessed Jim Carrey roles, because obviously The Mask is #1, then Ace Ventura, then The Grinch, and Robotnik, he probably might be in the top 5. We'll eventually see. But the one thing that's very surprising, even though a sequel of The Mask never is, we're not sure if it is going to happen, and for the Sonic movie, I want the movie to be a box office success, because for the month of February, I'm going to post a lot of Jim Carrey and Sonic movie related stuff, because that'll be my next video, the Sonic movie review that I will be doing. And once when I go see the movie, I definitely want sequels to be happening, because it will be a potential, of course, to make a full franchise based on the live-action Sonic movie. And since I already thought of sequels being made, and to me it was all in my head, I always think of Jim Carrey's Robotnik return for the sequel, since the movie is basically an origin story of Sonic the Hedgehog and Dr. Robotnik, and we're seeing the evolution of that character, and to me, that needs to explore more in a sequel or a couple of movies. And I'm so glad that Jim is actually interested to play Dr. Robotnik again if a Sonic movie sequel happens. We just need, if you want a Sonic movie sequel to happen, go see the movie more than once. Depends if you love the movie or not. But I'm a full defender of the Sonic movie, and I definitely want sequels to be made, and I definitely want Jim to reprise his role as Dr. Robotnik. So basically, it's in an interview where he technically just says that he will be interested in playing. He says, "This part, I wouldn't mind doing another one because it was so much fun. First of all, and you know, it was a real challenge to convince people that I have a triple-digit IQ. There's so much room. Robotnik has reached his apotheosis. Look it up!" So yeah, that's what basically he said in the Sonic movie interviews, because I feel like characters like Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dr. Robotnik, I felt like these are the only Jim Carrey characters that feels necessary to continue more stories in the form of sequels. Dumb and Dumber 2, I felt like that movie was satisfying enough for Lloyd and Harry's adventure that I feel like, we don't really need a third one. But definitely want Ace Ventura 3, Mask 2, and Sonic movie sequel, and my life will be completed. Because I would call that the Carrey-sance. Kind of like Keanu Reeves has his Keanu-sance. That will be the Carrey-sance of Jim Carrey's career. That will be his greatest comeback to his older roles, and it will make my childhood dream come true, since, of course, I'm 18 right now, and I probably might be in the acting business in a couple of years so soon, so I definitely want those roles to be reprised. And then one, the honest choice, even though you probably might not be familiar with this, but there's this movie called The Truman Show, and that's one of Jim Carrey's most dramatic roles, but surprisingly, he actually has a very psychological idea for a sequel of that movie. And don't get me wrong, that was like one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies of all time. It proves that he's a great actor in general, not just to make you laugh, but make me cry as well from that movie. And technically, his idea for they never confirm a sequel, even though that movie's been made by the same studio who's making the Sonic movie. But he technically just talks about what would he like to see if they ever make a Truman Show sequel. I think Truman Show is something that exists on a micro level now. It's kind of a story that on a macro level, but now everybody has a subscriber channel. Everyone has their own little worlds because basically the movie's all about a television, of course, insurance salesman that he is stuck in a TV show and he's basically can't escape the boundaries of reality and never escape the real world. So that's like the premise of that movie. It's an amazing movie. So I suggest to you people to watch it if you have not seen The Truman Show. But he's just saying like, there's something to be had I often think about. And I just think that it's really interesting. Even though I'm the type of guy that doesn't really like doing like, I don't think The Truman Show doesn't really need a sequel. Kind of like when Bruce Almighty doesn't really need one. But I would be interested if they ever done that. So we'll eventually see. It's up to Jim Carrey. It's up to the studios themselves just to make the sequel. And I'll be on board to them. And I definitely want to make more Jim Carrey roleplay skits. So anyway, that's all for today's video. I'm sorry if I cannot speak proper English as well. I need to go back to high school and eventually get my new degree. But technically, that's all I have to say. I'll see you guys when the Sonic movie's out in the theater. I'll be watching it with my cousin, and then I'll pull out my movie review, and then after that, I will make my Sonic movie sequel. And leave in the comments down below about my Mask sequel. Would you like to see a separate video of The Mask 2, like my plot ideas? And it'll be a really long video where I just break down for what I like to see in a Mask sequel. So thank you guys for watching, and in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Take care now. Bye-bye then.